Hey everybody, how's it going? I just wanted to do a quick video on the September watch dates. And these are not the typical popular dates that most people are talking about on the internet right now. And also, when I say watch dates, I'm not talking about trying to guess the date of the asteroid impact or the date of the rapture or anything like that. The watch dates that we look at on this channel are simply watch dates. It means we're going to watch what occurs on those dates and take note of it, because this first one is today. It starts today and it goes through September 3rd, and it's based on this 40-day pattern that we've been watching since last year. So as you can see at the bottom, it says that, June 12th through the 14th was one of our watches, and I have not done an update since that watch. So I'm just going to really quick go back at these other 40 days that we haven't covered since June, and we'll look at what has occurred. I'm not invested in these 40-day watches. I don't want things to happen on these dates. It's just happening. So what this is it seems to be a pattern of significant developments that are occurring every 40 days since last June. And they always have something to do with either the Islamic State or Korea. So June 12th was the murder of the second in command of Al-Qaeda. So we had the second in command killed on that 40-day watch. So here we have June 12th, Al-Qaeda second in command, Al-Qaeda leader killed. 40 days after that, landed on the window of July 22nd through the 24th. And on July 23rd, Turkey joined the war against the Islamic State, whereas they had previously not been involved. And it says after months of wavering, they finally decided to join the war. So that was a significant development right there. The fact that Turkey agreed to join the war against the Islamic State. That occurred July 23rd. So again, that was 40 days after the second in command was killed. So we'll put that on here. Turkey joined the fight against Islamic State. And then 40 days after that lands on September 1st through the 3rd. So today, tomorrow, and the next day is a watch. That's the next date we will be watching for a significant development having to do with either Korea or the Islamic State war. Okay, so after that, September 6th through the 8th marks a huge watch. And that is the end of the generation from 1948. So as we all know, in Matthew 24, it says, in verses 32 through 34, learn the parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is nigh. This generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. And it's talking about everything before that. So we know everything before that happened except the asteroid impact and the rescue. So it indicates the asteroid impact and rescue will occur before that generation passes. So the question is, how long is that generation? And in the first chapter of the book of Matthew, it says that from Abraham to David, there were 14 generations. From David to the Babylon siege, there were 14 generations. And from the Babylon siege to Jesus, there were 14 generations. So that tells us if we can calculate the years between those events, we will have the exact number of years in one generation. From Abraham to David, there were 941 years. I have a video on that I uploaded a couple months ago. So there were 941 years. Divide that by 14 generations and you have 67.21 years in one generation. From David to the Babylon siege, there were 454 years. Divide that by 14, you get 32.42 years in one generation. And from Babylon siege to Jesus, you have 600 years. Divide that by 14 and you get 42.85 years in one generation. If you add them all together, you have 1,995 years total. You divide that by 42 generations. So you're dividing that by 14 times 3, and that gives you 47.5 years in one generation. So as you can see, the maximum length of one generation in the book of Matthew itself is 67.21 years. So when it says here in verse 34, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled, it's saying one generation will not pass once the fig tree buds. The fig tree is Israel. So in May of 1948, Israel became a nation. That was the springtime budding of the fig tree. But spring in 1948 did not end until June 20th. That was the last day of spring. So if you count the 67.21 years after that, I don't know, the way I calculated it ended up being September 7th. Some people calculated it earlier than that, but September 7th is the last date. I mean, it's literally 2015. So it's a 3-day window because we have the international date line that, it might be Monday for you, but it's Tuesday for somebody else. And depending on what time it is during the day, it might also be Sunday for somebody else. So we have a 3-day window. And it's basically Labor Day, the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th. That is bizarre to me, that the maximum one generation right here in the book of Matthew, when it is calculated from the last day of spring in 1948, we end on Labor Day in 2015. That's the maximum number of years from the putting forth of the leaves before summer. The absolute maximum would be the last day of spring plus 67.21 years. And that ends next week. So that's it. That is a huge watch right there. The following week we have the Jewish feast days. So here they are. This is a Jewish calendar. We have Rosh Hashanah, otherwise known as the Feast of Trumpets, from the evening of September 13th until the evening of September 15th. Then Yom Kippur, otherwise known as Atonement, from the evening of the 22nd until the evening of the 23rd. And we have Sukkot, otherwise known as Tabernacles, starting on the evening of the 27th until it actually goes until the evening of the 5th, October 5th, because they have an 8th day. There's an 8th day to Sukkot. So I have the standard Jewish calendar in purple here. So trumpets from the 13th to 15th, Atonement 22nd, 23rd, Sukkot 27th through the 4th of October. Here's the important thing. A lot of Christians think that the rapture is going to happen on the Feast of Trumpets. And I never really understood the prophecies here very well. I mean, for years, it actually took me years to understand this. It's very simple, but because it's so simple, it is easily overlooked. So I admit I'm not the only person who has made that mistake before, where it just overlooked this and didn't think it was that important, when in reality it's extremely important, because it's telling us no one is going to know the day or the hour. So it's not going to be midnight, because midnight is happening at different times throughout all over the planet. Depends on where you live. So it's not going to be midnight. Midnight refers to something else. That's the first thing. But it also says in Matthew 24:50, the Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him. And it's talking about those who smite their fellow servant. In other words, people that are like Christians and Jews that are out there attacking other people. It says their Lord will come in a day that they are not looking for him. So then you look at something like the Feast of Trumpets, which is standard among Christians as the potential date of the rapture. So absolutely will not happen on the Feast of Trumpets. And again, I am not attacking anyone here. This is not meant to criticize anybody. I've made the same mistake. A lot of people have made the same. I remember people screaming this at me 4 years ago because I thought that it was possible. Someone had told me that it was somebody who I respected had told me that it was possible to know the day. And it is not possible to know the day. It's not. There's more than one scripture that says that. And it's clear. It's not going to happen on that. So for people that are expecting the rapture to occur on the Feast of Trumpets on the standard calendar, it's not going to happen. So I'm not saying that to discourage. I'm just saying that because we know for certain that the prophecy is saying it will not happen on the days that they expect it to happen. It will not happen on the days we expect it to happen. So that leaves very little days in September that it could potentially happen. But I'm not saying it won't happen in September. I have no idea which month it will happen in. As I said before, I just look at what has been fulfilled in the prophecy. The prophecy indicates that 2015 and 2016 are very, very strong watch years. So I'm not saying it won't be in September. I'm just saying it's not going to be on a day that people expect. So it won't be on the Feast of Trumpets, it won't be on the Feast of Atonement, and it won't be on the Feast of Tabernacles. I say that because I have trust in these prophecies. So for people that think that God's going to do it whenever God wants to do it, that's not what the prophecies say. The prophecies say it's an appointed time. So it's not a matter of God doing it when God wants to do it. That's not what's going on here. And if the texts are telling us, if the prophecies that have been proven accurate are telling us no one will know that the date of the event, then it means no one will know. It means it's not going to happen on these standard feast days. So that leaves just a few other days in September that maybe it will happen. Who knows? I don't know. But it won't be the standard feast days that everybody is expecting something to happen on. So again, the Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him. I just think that's a really, really important verse right there. Okay, the next thing that happens is the UN 70th session is starting on the 15th, which is the last day of the standard Feast of Trumpets. And the 70th session is significant because the UN, as we've talked about before, is the seventh head of the beast, and it is also the eighth king. And in the prophecies, the 70 years is really important, that Babylon is destroyed by the asteroid at the end of a 70-year period. So in Jeremiah, it tells us that Judah will serve Babylon for 70 years. And at the end of that 70-year period, the wrath. So the UN is having their 70th session September 15th this year, until September 28th. So that's a pretty big deal when it comes to what the prophecies are saying. Then we have a watch that we're looking at from September 16th through the 18th. And that's based on these vision fulfillments that happened in 2011, 2012, 2013, and 2014. And I'm not sure what's going on with this. It's bizarre. For those of you that have been around for a while, you know what I'm talking about. That October 2011 one was probably the most bizarre out of all of them because the fulfillment happened October 29th, 2011, and then exactly a year later, the hurricane hit on that exact same day. And the hurricane was the second thing I saw in the vision. I mean, it was just very unbelievable to me. And that was probably the biggest thing, was that vision that I had October 13th, 2011, and its fulfillments on October 29th, 2 years in a row. In 2013, the island volcano occurred October 26th. Now, you might remember that because I was looking for a volcano that year, but the circle with the line through it that I saw in the vision in 2011 turned out to be the Danish word for island. So the island, we were looking for the island volcano, and it was the Sicily island volcano that erupted October 26th in 2013, which was sort of not that big of a deal. But then October 28th in 2014, we were looking for the same thing. Like, okay, maybe this will have something to do with the island volcano again. And it was the Hawaii island volcano that reached the first village properties on that day. So out of these three visions, you can see the September vision, the October vision, the November vision. Out of those three, the biggest one was the October vision. But there were these other ones as well. So the September vision ended up having something to do with the UN General Assembly, which I didn't even figure out until last year. Although the DC shooting happened on that date in 2013 and we were watching for it before it happened, I think it is referring to the UN General Assembly somehow. Although last year it was also a threat against the Pope from ISIS. So that might have something to do with it because for some reason there's a connection between either the September or October event and the December event. So I don't know. We're starting that now. We're starting this watch. We do this every year. We've been doing it since 2011. we watch September, October, and December. So again, that watch is coming up September 16th through the 18th. Then we have the Pope coming to the U.S., and he has never addressed Congress before in history, so it's a major event. And he is going to be here from September 22nd to the 27th. And it's a big deal because for non-religious people, it's a big deal because you would think that our government would not be having a religious leader speak to Congress. So for non-religious people, it should be a big deal. They should be looking at that and saying, hey, why is there a religious leader addressing Congress, and why does Congress act like they are his subjects? That's very disturbing. But for people that understand Bible prophecy, it's also disturbing because the Pope is the second beast in Revelation 13. Not him personally, not this man that is posing as Pope, but the Pope. The position of the Pope is the second beast in Revelation 13. We've talked about that before. And the DC temple was made in the image of the temple of Saturn, which we talked about before. I talk about it in the Daniel 11 video a little bit. It has everything to do with the temple. The abomination of desolation was the Dome of the Rock that was set up in 685, and it is a Roman temple, and it was set up as an Islamic temple, but it's not. It's a Roman temple, and this is a Roman temple as well. So this is a rebuilt temple of Saturn, and the second beast in Revelation 13, the Pope, will be there for the first time in history this month. So yes, that is a huge event. Saturn has meaning for them, and I'm not really sure how deep that goes. But it is a really important event. So that will occur from September 22nd to September 27th. And then, of course, we have the solar eclipse on September 13th and the lunar eclipse on September 28th, which is significant for those who follow the standard Jewish calendar. But again, the standard Jewish calendar is false. So I personally do not expect the apocalypse or the rapture to occur on those dates. Because again, we're told it will happen on a day we do not expect. And also, those are false feast days anyway. They're not true feast days. But again, those are eclipses if you want to watch them. And I do think that the eclipses are significant because, my dreams and visions have been coming true for years. And I did have some dreams about specifically the dream about Pluto, where it came true this year. According to NASA, this is the year of Pluto. And I had that dream 20 years ago. And I always thought that the Pluto thing was somehow a mistake. And now I realize that it's not. That same dream that I had around that time was of a lunar eclipse. So, I do agree that the eclipses are significant. I just don't think they're significant for the same reasons that the Christians think that. But again, the prophecy says that the rescue and the asteroid impact, the apocalypse asteroid impact, will not occur on a day that we expect. So pretty much that means it's not going to happen on the eclipse days. But any other day, maybe. But a lot of people are talking about the 23rd and the 24th, and it won't happen on those days because that's a date that people are expecting, and the prophecy says it's not going to happen on the date people are expecting. So when pastors are out there saying that the rapture is going to occur on a certain feast day, they're wrong, and the Bible is very clear about that. So I'm not saying that the rescue or the apocalyptic asteroid is not going to hit in September. I have no idea. Maybe it will. But if it does, it's not going to be a day we expect. And because so many things are going on in September and there's so much speculation about it, that leaves only a few days that are not days that people are expecting something in September. I'm not saying whether it will or won't. I'm not trying to predict anything. I'm just pointing out the facts and the patterns that we've been looking at. So that's pretty much it. I just wanted again to say that this is not something that I want to go on forever and ever. I hope that whatever it is that's going on here, I hope that it is resolved and figured out and cleared up within the next couple of years, because this is not enjoyable for me. It's this feeling of constantly being on the edge. I don't enjoy that. But the fact, it's not something that I do for fun. It's not something that I do for any other reason other than it's just the truth. These things are happening. They are happening exactly the way they were written in these ancient texts. And it just seems to me like 2015 and 2016 are the biggest watch years that we've looked at. Yeah, maybe it is September, maybe it's not. But if it's not September, then that's not the end of it. It still goes on beyond that. And the sign described in Revelation 12, there's a reason why that celestial configuration was written in there. There's a reason for that. The same celestial configuration that occurred in 685 Abomination of Desolation, the Dome of the Rock. It actually occurred in 686, but that was while they were building it, because they were building it from 685 to 691. That is the same sign. It occurred in 2012. It doesn't occur again for 500 years, roughly 500 years. I can't imagine our world surviving for another 500 years unless something really major changed, because it just seems like everything's going downhill. But I'm not going to change this. People that don't understand, people that will come to my channel for the first time and just kind of watch one video, or not even watch the video, just look at the title. They'll say things like, oh, you're just pushing out the date just to make the... No, believe me. Please believe me. I am not pushing out the date. Okay, this is what it is. These fulfillments of prophecy are basically, okay, the text says, the idol of terror will be placed 1,290 days after the oath is taken. It's a done deal. You can't change that. And they translated it different originally, and they thought it would be something else, but you can't change it. It can't be changed. I mean, these are things that, look, either Daniel 9 was fulfilled or it wasn't. You can't make it up. It's not just la-di-da, let's just come up with a date and just, no. These things are specific. They're mathematical. It says this event will happen and then that event will happen. And they are specific events. They are specific events, and the time periods are specific time periods. So, I mean, we're not just making this up. The book of Daniel is specific. The word Shabua, it's mathematical. It means a couple different things. And I know some people disagree with that. They think, oh no, it doesn't mean +7 or ×7. I still disagree. Yes, it does, because it's mathematical. It's a singular 7 or a multiple of 7. In mathematics, that is +7 or ×7. So I firmly stand on that these fulfillments did occur. So that means that 2024 is the cutoff. Even though 2015 and 2016 look like the most prominent years right now, it still is not going to close until 2025, because it's not something that you can just make up. The fulfillments of Daniel have to occur. The sign in Revelation 12 have to occur. Let me just say this, please, okay? If something happened and I found out this was all just if I found out that everything I've seen on the news for the past 5 years was a lie and it was all just, I don't know, never happened or something, I would come out of it and say, okay, you know what? Then it's not going to happen until the events in Daniel 9 happen exactly the way they're written. Not the way the pastors told you it would happen, but the way it's written. The way it's written, it has to happen the way it hit. The sign in Revelation 12 has to occur when it says it will occur. And it did. I mean, we even had the 400 years of affliction that appear to be ending in 2019. If the slave ships in 1619, they did arrive in 1619, if those were the ships, if that was the affliction, then it says it will end in 2019. If it's going to end in 2019, then that tribulation period will definitely occur before it, and that's 3.5 years. So that's now. The generation in the book of Matthew is ending literally next week. This is very bizarre stuff. I feel like I'm dreaming it. I feel like I must be asleep somewhere dreaming this, because it is that unbelievable. I just can't get over that nobody's paying attention to it. I don't know where these people are at in their mind that they can't see this. In Daniel 9, a lot of people thought it was about Jesus, and it doesn't say Jesus. It doesn't use the word Yeshua. It uses the word Messiah, and the book of Daniel is all code. Every word it uses to represent a political leader is a code word, like goat or lion, or, I mean, it's all code. Why wouldn't the word Messiah also be code? It is. It was referring to Obama, the one that everyone called Messiah. It doesn't mean Obama's Jesus. Daniel 9 is not talking about Jesus. That was a misunderstanding. They thought years ago, generations ago, they thought Messiah was Jesus. That's not what it says. It's amazing to me, because people are not, the non-religious people won't listen to it because they think it's religious mumbo jumbo. The religious people won't listen to it because it doesn't go along with their dogma. And it's about dogma for everybody. This doesn't match their dogma. This is totally outside of all the dogma. There is no dogma that matches this. And so all the people that are following dogma are not going to recognize this for the validity of it, because it is logically valid. This is what the prophecies say. These things did happen the way the text said they would. The third watch just happened in 2012. The event that it said would happen happened. And I was not a 2012er. You guys can go back and watch my videos in 2012 or before that. I was not the standard 2012er. I was not. I didn't even know these fulfillments happened until after they happened. And they didn't happen on December 21st. They happened on August 2nd, September 16th, and October 16th in 2012. The three major fulfillments of prophecy in the Bible. And of course, the non-Christians are not going to listen to it. The New Agers are not going to listen. Anybody following dogma is not going to pay attention to this. But it happened. And that was 3 years ago, which in prophecy is also equal to 3 days. And we all know what the prophecies say about 3 days. The rising will occur after 3 days. That's one of them. So I hope you guys are doing well. That's pretty much it. I'm going to let you go. But that is what's coming up for September. And we'll talk about October next month when it comes around. So that's pretty much it. I hope you guys are all doing well, and I will talk to you later. Okay, bye-bye.